Do you know the legend of the man who stood alone against the entire navy, even with one foot in the grave? A pirate who fought not for gold, but for something far more valuable: family. Today we're going to remember the life of Edward Newgate, Whitebeard, the strongest man in the world. Spoiler alert, this video contains major story details and key moments from One Piece. If you haven't watched up to the Marineford War, proceed at your own risk. Edward Newgate was born on a small, completely forgotten island, neglected by the world government. This island didn't even have a notable name on any map. It was just another isolated piece of land, lost in the vast ocean. The living conditions were extremely harsh. There was a lack of food, clean water, infrastructure, and most of all, hope. The people of the island lived in absolute poverty. There was no trade, no schools, and no social development. Most residents survived by fishing or gathering whatever they could find. Disease was rampant, and child mortality rates were high. Growing up there meant learning to fight for survival from a very young age. Newgate was one of those children. With no known family, he grew up as an orphan, learning to fend for himself. Even as just a boy, he had an imposing physique and strength that caught everyone's attention on the island. But unlike many kids who became bitter in such an environment, Newgate had a generous heart. He used his strength to protect the weak, standing up against passing pirates or any other threat that appeared. Despite living with hunger and hardship, Newgate often shared the little food he had. It was common to see him giving away what he earned with great effort to help younger children. It was in the midst of that misery that Edward Newgate's greatest dream was born: to have a true family. While other pirates who left the island chased wealth, fame, or power, what Newgate wanted was simple: a home, something he never had. He witnessed poverty, pain, and abandonment all around him, and he promised himself that one day he would build a family where everyone would be protected and would never again experience what he had gone through. That desire stayed with him for the rest of his life. It was this ideal that led him to create the Whitebeard Pirates years later, treating every single member of his crew as his own son.
ガキの頃から欲しかったものがある。お、あるのか。教えてみろ。家族。
After leaving his hometown island, Edward Newgate began his life as a pirate, young, strong, and with an immense thirst for freedom. At that time, the world was far more chaotic, and the seas were ruled by violent, lawless pirates. It was in this dangerous environment that Newgate started building his reputation. During his early years, Newgate sailed solo for a while, but his incredible strength soon caught the attention of one of the most dangerous groups in history, the Rocks Pirates, led by none other than Rocks D. Zebek, one of the most feared pirates the world had ever known. The Rocks Pirates weren't just an ordinary crew. They were a gathering of monsters. Among their ranks were individuals who would later become legends and terrors of the seas: Charlotte Linlin, Big Mom, Kaido, Shiki, Captain John, and of course, Edward Newgate. The crew was extremely powerful, but also highly unstable. There was no friendship among them, only a forced coexistence driven by individual interests. The members were so dangerous that they often fought each other aboard their own ship. Rocks D. Zebek had a grand and insane dream: to rule the entire world and destroy both the world government and the celestial dragons. Even in such a violent environment, Newgate stood out for having a very different personality. While other members sought power, blood, and destruction, Newgate held on to his old ideal, searching for something close to a family, even though that seemed impossible within the Rocks Pirates. He had no interest in Rock's crazy ambitions, or in the bloodthirsty nature of Kaido and Big Mom. This difference in values meant that, despite being one of the strongest members of the crew, Newgate never became a blind follower of Zebek. The end of the Rocks Pirates came with the legendary God Valley incident, one of the most important events in the history of the One Piece world. During this battle, the Navy, led by Monkey D. Garp, joined forces with none other than Gold D. Roger, the future Pirate King, to defeat Rocks and his army of monsters. The battle was brutal. Exact details are still shrouded in mystery, but it's known that Rox D. Zebek was defeated and the Rox pirates were officially dismantled. After this event, each former member went their separate ways, and it was at this point that Edward Newgate began walking the path toward becoming a true legend. After the fall of the Rox pirates, Newgate decided to form his own crew, the Whitebeard pirates. From that moment on, he would start his journey as one of the most respected, feared, and loved men to ever sail the seas. It was the beginning of a new era, an era led by a man who, more than anything, wanted to build a family. After the collapse of the Rox pirates and the battle at God Valley, Edward Newgate finally had the freedom he had always wanted, the chance to build something of his own. Unlike many pirates of that era, Newgate didn't seek power, territory, or fame. What he truly wanted was a real family, something that would become the foundation of his life and purpose. This desire had been with him since childhood, when he grew up alone, poor, and with no one by his side. With his own ship, the legendary Moby Dick, Edward Newgate began recruiting people who were also lost in the world. They were orphans, fugitives, lone pirates, people who, like him, were looking for a place where they could belong. But Newgate made one thing clear from the start. If you're part of my crew, you're my son. To him, this crew wasn't just a band of pirates. It was a true family. He demanded respect and loyalty, but in return, he offered protection, care, and the father figure that many of his crew members had never had. Unlike other Yonko or pirate captains, Whitebeard had a unique philosophy. He didn't tolerate internal betrayal. He wouldn't allow any of his sons to be disrespected or threatened. If anyone dared lay a hand on one of his crew, Whitebeard would declare war without hesitation. He was a man of honor. The respect among his sons was absolute, and their loyalty to him unquestionable. Over time, the Whitebeard pirates grew not only in number, but also in strength. Newgate structured his crew into divisions, each led by its own commander. Some of these figures became legends in their own right. Marco the Phoenix, 1st Division Commander, Ace, Fire Fist, 2nd Division Commander, Jozu, the Diamond, Vista, the Flower Swordsman, and many others. Whitebeard also formed alliances with several smaller pirate crews, creating a network of protection across multiple seas. With his Gura Gura no Mi and his overwhelming haki, Whitebeard soon earned the title of the strongest man in the world. He controlled vast territories in the New World. Many kingdoms and islands flew his flag just for the privilege of his protection. But even with all that influence, his goal never changed: to protect his family. He became a true symbol of balance across the seas. As long as Whitebeard was alive, few dared to challenge the peace he had built. After years of battles, conquests, and alliances, Edward Newgate earned one of the most feared and respected titles in the world of One Piece, Yonko, one of the 4 emperors of the seas. This title wasn't handed to him. It was earned through blood, sweat, and undeniable displays of strength. The entire world knew messing with Whitebeard was the same as declaring war on an empire. The Yonko are the 4 most powerful pirates in the New World. They rule vast territories, command massive armies of subordinates, and have enough power to challenge even the Navy. Whitebeard was considered the strongest among them. His territories were known for being under absolute protection. No other pirate dared to invade an island that flew Whitebeard's flag. Even the Navy thought twice before engaging him directly. During his time as a Yonko, Whitebeard had complex relationships with the other emperors. Shanks, for example, showed him great respect. Kaido and Big Mom, former comrades from the Rox Pirates era, maintained a relationship of rivalry and constant tension. Still, all of them recognized Edward Newgate's supreme strength. Whitebeard was considered a pillar of stability. His presence served as a balancing force that prevented the pirate world from plunging into total chaos. The Whitebeard pirates were enormous. Beyond dozens of division commanders and hundreds of crew members, he had dozens of allied pirate crews who would fight to the death for him. His power wasn't just physical. He had real political influence in the underworld, interfering in local wars, protecting kingdoms, and ensuring that those under his flag lived in peace. For the people living in his territories, Whitebeard was a true king. He didn't collect taxes, enslave, or exploit. His only demand was loyalty and respect. Even with old age and serious health issues, Whitebeard remained a force of nature on his own. His Gura Gura no Mi allowed him to cause earthquakes powerful enough to sink entire islands. It was said that he had the power to destroy the world if he wanted to. The combination of raw strength, top-level hockey, and natural charisma made even his enemies respect him.
Get ready, men! He's coming this way! The strongest pirate of the world! Let's attack!
The world government always saw Whitebeard as a threat. Many attempts at confrontation happened over the years, but they always ended with the same conclusion. Fighting Whitebeard meant risking thousands of soldiers and triggering a conflict of global scale. That's why, for many years, the Navy chose to maintain peace and balance, avoiding direct conflict with him, until the tragic case of Ace. Even without the official title of Pirate King, many said that Whitebeard was the true king of the seas, both because of his strength and the way he ruled over his territory and his family. He was the embodiment of an emperor, respected by allies, feared by enemies, and loved by those who called him father. Portgas D. Ace, also known as Fire Fist Ace, was one of the most special members of the Whitebeard pirates. But his relationship with Edward Newgate went far beyond that of a simple captain and subordinate. Ace was seen as a true son. Ace was originally the captain of the Spade Pirates, a crew he founded himself. Even at a young age, he stood out for his strength and mastery over the Mara Mara no Mi, Flame Fruit. When he crossed paths with the Whitebeard pirates, Ace tried to fight Edward Newgate. Instead of killing him, Whitebeard saw great potential in Ace. After several failed attempts to defeat Newgate, Ace was eventually adopted as one of his sons. Newgate recognized the pain and loneliness that Ace carried, and offered him what he had always offered everyone who boarded the Moby Dick: a true family. Ace, who was proud and resistant at first, gradually became one of the most loyal and beloved members of the crew. Although Ace was happy with his new family, he had a dangerous personality trait. He couldn't tolerate anyone insulting Whitebeard. This obsession with his father's honor led him to pursue a traitor, Marshal D. Teach, also known as Blackbeard, a former division commander who had murdered a crewmate to steal a powerful devil fruit. Whitebeard advised Ace to let the revenge go, but Ace didn't listen. During his pursuit of Blackbeard, Ace was defeated and handed over to the Navy as a prisoner. This was a devastating blow for Whitebeard and his entire crew. The Navy saw a golden opportunity to publicly execute Ace and lure Whitebeard into a war that would shake the balance of the world. The execution was scheduled to take place at Marineford, the Navy's headquarters. Upon hearing about Ace's capture and execution sentence, Whitebeard didn't hesitate for even a second. Even though he was sick, old, and physically weakened, he gathered all his military strength, called upon all his allied crews, and set sail for Marineford. His goal was clear: save my son, no matter the cost. This wasn't just a pirate's decision, it was a father's decision, willing to face the entire world to protect his son. The Ace incident wasn't just a dispute between pirates and the world government. It was the trigger for one of the greatest wars in One Piece history, the Marineford War. The Marineford War wasn't just a conflict between pirates and the Navy. It was a historical event that completely changed the balance of power in the world of One Piece. And at the very center of it all stood him, Edward Newgate, Whitebeard, the strongest man in the world. Whitebeard and his fleet arrived at Marineford in a truly spectacular fashion. Using the power of his Gura Gura no Mi, he literally split the sea in half, creating a path for his ships to emerge from beneath the water. It was an entrance worthy of a legend. Even in old age and suffering from serious illnesses, Whitebeard stood at the front lines, ready to personally lead the mission to rescue Ace. The war erupted with full force. On one side, the entire navy, including the three admirals Akainu, Aokiji, and Kizaru, Fleet Admiral Sengoku, and even the dreaded Shichibukai like Mihawk, Doflamingo, and others. On the other side, Whitebeard, all his division commanders, his allied crews, and hundreds of pirates fighting for a single goal, to save Ace. Despite being outnumbered, Whitebeard's power was so immense that he caused earthquakes capable of destroying the Navy's own headquarters. Massive tidal waves, ground-shattering tremors, and Newgate's devastating attacks left the world watching in horror and awe through live broadcasts. During the battle, Whitebeard suffered an unexpected blow. Squard, one of his own allies, stabbed him in the back with a sword. Manipulated by the Navy, Squard believed that Whitebeard had made a secret deal to save only Ace and abandon everyone else. Even gravely wounded, Whitebeard didn't retaliate. He simply forgave Squard, showing once again that his love for his sons was unconditional. This moment emotionally shook his entire crew, making them fight even more fiercely afterward. Despite all their efforts, when Ace was finally freed, the tragedy no one expected occurred. Akainu, the Magma Admiral, provoked Ace, attacked Luffy, and in the midst of the chaos, Ace sacrificed himself to protect his younger brother, taking a fatal blow to the chest. Ace's death was the most painful blow Whitebeard had ever suffered in his entire life. In that moment, the world's strongest man felt the deepest pain imaginable. After Ace's death, Whitebeard unleashed all his fury. Even on the brink of death, riddled with wounds, he advanced against the Navy with devastating power. He fought Akainu, caused even more destruction across Marineford, and with his final attacks opened a path for the rest of his sons to escape with their lives. Whitebeard fought until the very last second, without retreating, without falling. Whitebeard took 267 sword wounds, 152 gunshots, 46 cannon blasts, and even lost half his head. And yet, he died standing tall. His body, even in death, did not fall, demonstrating the true meaning of being the strongest man in the world. And his final words echoed across the seas. The One Piece does exist. With those words, Whitebeard ignited the hearts of a new generation of pirates, leaving behind an eternal legacy.
One Piece wa jitsuzai suru!
The death of Edward Newgate, Whitebeard, marked the end of an era, but contrary to what many believed, it was only the beginning of a new age of chaos, hope, and revolution. Whitebeard didn't just leave behind territories or riches, he left a legacy that would echo for generations. With his last words, Whitebeard shouted a truth to the world that many doubted. The One Piece does exist. That statement was more powerful than any attack. It reignited the flame in the hearts of pirates, adventurers, and dreamers from all corners of the world. The great pirate era, which had begun to lose momentum, exploded once again with full force. Young pirates like Luffy, Law, Kid, and many others felt even more driven to carve their own paths toward the new world. Whitebeard's promise echoed across the seas, creating a domino effect that would even shake the world government itself. With Whitebeard's fall, the world plunged into a state of imbalance. The territories he had once protected were invaded by other pirates. Alliances among the Yonko shifted. Blackbeard, the man who betrayed Whitebeard, took over his former territories and rose as a new Yonko. The void left by Newgate sparked a brutal struggle for power across the seas. Even with the loss of their father, the surviving members of the Whitebeard pirates continued to fight to honor his memory. Marco, the 1st Division commander, led the remaining crew for a time, protecting allies and keeping alive the flag that Whitebeard had once raised. They knew that as long as they upheld Newgate's teachings, Whitebeard's spirit would never die. Today, in the world of One Piece, the name Edward Newgate stands for strength, courage, loyalty, and unconditional love for his family. He was the pirate who never sought to be king, but who ended up becoming the king of his sons' hearts. Whitebeard's legend remains alive, in stories, in the flags that still fly, and in the dreams of those still sailing toward their own destiny.